Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of What the Dementia by Bambu Care. I'm your host, Brianna Wilson. I'm a certified dementia practitioner and the founder of Bambu Care, where you can find us at letsbambu.com. If you are new to our podcast, I want to make sure that you know that the What the Dementia podcast is only one of the many ways that we support dementia care partners along their journey, okay? So please be sure to check us out when you get a chance. So today's episode is actually a part 2 in our exploration of the concern, they don't remember who I am. In part 1, we covered why your partner living with dementia may not remember you or recognize you. So if you haven't already, please be sure to check out part 1. I will link it in the podcast notes. For this episode, we're going to talk about how do you handle it? How do you handle situations where your partner doesn't remember you or recognize you? And just as a heads up, this episode is not going to cover what to do if your partner doesn't recognize you and therefore doesn't understand why you're in their house, maybe even fears you and wants you to leave. We'll have to save that side of the topic for another day, okay? So, before we get started, I do want to mention that if you are listening to this in real time, which this episode is posted on Wednesday, December 6th, we're in the middle of our 12 days of Christmas. So today we are actually discounting the annual Paw Pass of the Treehouse, which is essentially the ultimate dementia care resource library for dementia caregivers, and we're discounting it for the 6th day of Christmas. And the offer is only good for today, December 6th, and it ends at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then we also have a giveaway coming up. So I'll post some details in the podcast notes for you to learn more. But honestly, the easiest way to keep up with us for the 12 days of Christmas is Instagram at Let's Bambu or Facebook at Bambu Care. And of course, our website is letsbambu.com, and we do try to make sure that we put a banner up for what's currently going on. Now, if you are catching this podcast episode after our event is over, I strongly encourage you to join our newsletter at letsbambu.com/newsletter so that you can always stay in the know, okay? So let's go ahead and get into the topic at hand. How to handle situations where your partner doesn't remember you or forgets your name. So the first time your partner doesn't recognize you or forgets your name is probably the most shocking. And you may experience a moment of disbelief and sadness. You may even feel angry, not necessarily with your partner with dementia, but with the dementia itself, and that all of this is even happening. But I want to say this clearly. Whatever emotions you experience and feel is completely normal and valid. So acknowledge your feelings, feel your feelings, and give yourself the space to process your feelings. Journal even if that helps, okay? Now, as you go through your emotions, one thing that I want you to keep in mind is that although someone with dementia may forget your name or may not be able to recognize you, people with dementia are very in tune with the connection they feel with you, whether that's a good or bad connection. So they know if they feel safe and comfortable around you. They know if they like your presence. They know if they enjoy talking to you. And they even often realize that you are someone familiar, but they just can't put a finger on how they know you and how you fit into the picture of it all. So my point is love and connection can be felt if the love is there to be felt. Now, the reason that I say this is because oftentimes as a person with dementia goes through their changes, the people closest to them will start treating them differently. So others may become more critical or strict or controlling. They may fuss more. They may distance themselves. They may not make the same efforts to connect and show affection. And it doesn't mean that they don't still love them, but like I said, love and connection is felt. So the way that you interact with your person matters a lot. Just think about it. Even for people you don't know or just met, you know pretty quickly whether or not you like them as a person and the energy they bring around you. You know what I mean? So my point here is don't focus so much on being known by your name or face. Focus on being known by your presence. Although, yes, it is nice to be remembered by name and role and all the memories that come along with it, what is most important is how you feel when you are with your partner and how your partner feels when they are with you. Allow them to feel your presence, okay? It's okay if they think you're someone else, especially if they like you. Now, if you're being mistaken for someone they don't particularly like, then of course that can be troublesome, right? Now, the next thing is a please don't do this. But let me say this first. It is okay to gently remind a person who you are in a casual, non confrontational way, especially in the beginning, where maybe you notice fluctuations in their ability to recognize you or remember your name. But please, don't insist your person remember who you are if it's clear they just don't remember. If you say, I'm your daughter, Judy, and they say, no, you're not, please do not go back and forth and saying, yes, I am, and try to show them proof and insist that the baby you is the grown you and all of this, okay? It's usually not helpful and it really does risk tainting the relationship. If stating your connection to them puts them on the defensive or freaks them out, just simply say that you are Judy, for example. You may even want to consider wearing a name tag. And understandably, it can feel a little awkward at first, but it can be so helpful, especially for people who don't have a great short term memory and can easily forget who you said you were within a couple of minutes, even if they've been talking to you, okay? Now, let's talk about what you would do if your parent says, have you seen Judy? Or where did Judy go? It can be so tempting to say, I'm Judy, Dad, I'm right here. And in some instances, they may, kind of squint, look you over, and agree that, oh, yeah, you are Judy. But if that's not the case, there's another technique that can be more helpful and productive, and that's asking questions. Questions like, well, what does she look like? Do you have a picture of her? I personally love this question because it can give you a better idea of where they are in their timeline. What picture of you are they holding in their head, and may it explain why they don't quite recognize you? You could also ask, when's the last time you've seen her? Or, well, it's 4 p.m. What does she normally do around this time? And saying, well, I'm sure she'll be back soon. Now, if they think that you are baby Judy, where is a safe place that baby Judy could be? That's realistic and would bring them comfort. And this can be really hard, but you have to take a step back mentally and think, what if you really weren't Judy? How would you respond? And that's really the frame of mind that you want to have when approaching these type of situations. Something else I love is asking them to tell you more about the person in question. And in this case, it's you, right? But the reason I love this is because it gives you the opportunity to hear things about yourself that your parent may have never told you directly, like how smart or funny they think you are, or a special memory they hold. It can be really precious to see how their face just lights up when they talk about people and are reminiscing about people that they care for. It can be a really special moment, okay? But honestly, it's all about meeting them where they are at and asking curious questions, okay? Now, another thing that I want you to consider is if this could be an opportunity to connect with your partner in a new way, and in some sense, maybe even have a do over for your relationship. The reality is not everyone has had a great relationship with their parent growing up or even in adulthood. And that may be true for you, or whatever the relationship may be, maybe there was some tension that developed along your journey together. So, your partner not recognizing you and therefore not associating certain negative feelings with you and holding things against you could be an opportunity worth taking advantage of. And not in a manipulative way, okay, but in a genuine, I want our relationship to be better way. Now, this isn't always easy because, of course, you remember all the icks that have happened and what transpired because of what happened within y'all's relationship, right? And I'm definitely not a mental health therapist or expert, and I do understand that some situations can have some pretty deep roots and complexities. So, of course, do what feels best for you and your mental health, okay? But I would suggest that you at least ask yourself, just pose the question, could this be a chance at a fresh start? Can I take steps towards forgiveness and see where this takes us? That doesn't mean that you have to do it. You're just asking yourself the question, okay? And then, of course, as with anything, if you find you are struggling to cope with your person with dementia, not remembering your name or recognizing you, I strongly encourage you to seek out professional help from a licensed mental health therapist, or recently I found out about a company called Steady, Steadii. And this is not an ad, by the way. I have no relationship with this company whatsoever. But their advocates offer one on one support specifically for dementia caregivers for free, at least right now, okay? And a few of the areas that they can help with is offering emotional support, teaching you how to implement stress management techniques, and supporting you through coping with grief. They provide a very personalized experience, okay? So, if you think this is something that you can benefit from or that you want to put in your toolbox for later or just in case, their website is steady.com. So, steadii.com. And we will actually be adding them to our Ultimate Resource Guide for dementia caregivers when we update the guide with new finds in a few months. But if you haven't gotten your resource guide yet, I strongly recommend that you do. And when we update the resource guide, we will be sending it to whatever email that you purchased the initial resource guide with, okay? So you can learn more about it and grab your copy at letsbamboo.link/ultimate resource guide. And of course, all the links are in the podcast notes, okay? But that is all for this episode. I really do hope that you found this podcast episode helpful. If you do find our podcast helpful, please consider leaving us a review to help other dementia caregivers find the podcast. If you haven't tuned into part 1 yet, please be sure to check it out. Again, I'll link it in the podcast notes. And of course, if anyone has any questions, comments, or future podcast requests, you can send us an email at podcast@whatthedementia.com. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of What the Dementia by Bamboo Care. We look forward to catching you on the next episode. Take care, and until next time, stay strong, care on, and remember, you are not alone. Bamboo Care is always here.